On college campuses today, students are punished for everything from mild satire to writing politically incorrect short stories to having the wrong opinion on virtually every hot-button issue. In the most extensive study yet conducted of campus speech codes, FIRE, that's the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, found that 65% of the 392 top colleges surveyed maintain speech codes and other restrictions on expression that violate First Amendment principles. Administrators have been able to convince well-meaning students to accept outright censorship by creating the impression that freedom of speech is somehow the enemy of social progress and that any speech with a chance of offending someone should be immediately silenced. At the University of Georgia, resident assistants have actually been required to call the police to address violations of the school's acts of intolerance policy, mostly students teasing each other or making crude jokes. At Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, Keith John Sampson, a middle-aged student and janitor, was found guilty without so much as a hearing of racial harassment for reading a book in public. Some of his co-workers were offended by the cover of the book Notre Dame versus the Klan, How the Fighting Irish Defeated the Ku Klux Klan, which included a black and white picture of a Klan rally. Even though Sampson explained to them that it was a history book celebrating the defeat of the Klan in a 1924 street fight, the school found Sampson guilty for openly reading a book related to a historically and racially abhorrent subject. While many attempts at censorship on campus are apolitical, students are far more likely to get in trouble for opposing, for example, affirmative action, gay marriage, and abortion rights than they are for supporting them. In 2007, at the University of Delaware, resident life officials mandated ideological training called treatment of all 7,000 students who lived in their dormitories. The officials were taught to redefine language when treating the presumed intolerance of their student body. For example, according to their orientation materials, a racist is one who is both privileged and socialized on the basis of race by a white supremacist racist system. The term applies to all white people, i.e. people of European descent living in the United States regardless of class, gender, religion, culture, or sexuality. By this definition, people of color cannot be racist because as peoples within the U.S. system, they do not have the power to back up their prejudices, hostilities, or acts of discrimination. No wonder a study of 24,000 students conducted by the Association of American Colleges and Universities in 2010 revealed that only 30.3% of college seniors strongly agreed with the statement that it is safe to hold unpopular opinions on campus. Even more alarmingly, the study showed that students' sense of safety in, again, merely holding unpopular opinions steadily declines from freshman year, starting at 40.3%, to senior year. And the students were downright optimistic. Compared to the 9,000 campus professionals surveyed, only 18.8% strongly agreed that it was safe to hold unpopular opinions on campus. When you remove the process of open debate and discussion from colleges, you take away higher education's reason for existence. An educational system in which the authorities believe they should decide what is right without being questioned is more like a seminary or a madrasa, not anything deserving of the name university. It can quickly lead to the formation of polarized groups in which people harbor a comfortable, uncritical certainty that they are right. And we have seen some of the bad intellectual habits and censorship tactics that were legitimized and weaponized on college campuses bleed into society at large. Stories involving famous people like Juan Williams, Rush Limbaugh, Bill Maher, Richard Dawkins, Larry Summers, even Dave Barry and Jon Stewart provide some real-world examples. As the sociologist Diana C. Mutz discovered in her 2006 book, Hearing the Other Side, those with the highest levels of education have the lowest exposure to people with conflicting points of view, while those who have not graduated from high school can claim the most diverse discussion mates. In other words, the most educated among us are also the most likely to live in the tightest echo chambers. Students and campus administrators are losing sight of the important role that the skeptical, questioning mind, aware of its own failings, has played in every aspect of human progress. Those who are responsible for higher education need to be reminded that society needs bright, ambitious, iconoclastic thinkers, not more foot soldiers for a seemingly endless culture war.
RT is sitting down with author, former governor of the state of Minnesota, former actor, radio and TV host, a man of many titles and a wild biography, and a controversial public figure in the United States, Mr. Jesse Ventura. Thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
My first question to you is your new book, American Conspiracies, Lies, Lies, and Dirty Lies That the Government Tells Us, has just been released. Why is it important for people to read it?
There are many of us that don't believe the status quo of what we've been told on many of these events. You know, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King. And there's many of us that just simply don't buy what we've been told happens 100 years from now. I want people to be able to look back at this time and era and realize that these things were not slam dunks, that there was dissension in the belief on this, and that the documents were real, and that the book was based upon those documents to show that quite possibly we were deceived and lied to about these events for political purposes or whatever it might be.
You've had your share of pretty explosive encounters with the mainstream media in America, and you've accused the media of covering up government lies. Where do you stand now? How much can the mainstream media in America be trusted?
I don't think much at all. They're a soundbite news now, if you get what I mean, soundbite. There's no depth to anything. Plus, our major news organizations have really almost become monopolized. There's only like 3. Our media today is into creating the news rather than reporting it. And that's very dangerous when they're creating news rather than reporting it.
When you appear on the mainstream media, how much do you expect your voice to be heard?
Oh, I expect it to be heard very much, because far too many people in this country only rely on the mainstream media for any information. But, you know, the internet is getting super powerful now, and that'll be next. See, that's what the government has to control next, is the internet. Whenever government says they're going to keep you safe, get ready, because you're going to lose your freedoms.
To what extent do you think the government is doing this now? How much do you think Big Brother is watching the American people?
Oh, unbelievable. I went to a street corner in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and on that street corner, there wasn't one camera, there was 4 of them, one on each corner, watching everybody. You go through the city of New York now, all these cities throughout the country, we're being watched by cameras. What's it for? Our safety. Credit cards now are getting microchips in them so they can track you. They build our cars now with this North Star thing, so a satellite can track you anywhere in the country and know where you're driving. We're being watched more than any time in history of the United States of America right now.
You're often accused of scandalizing the events of 9/11. Can you sum up your position for us, and what do you say to those people who don't agree with what you say?
Scandalize it? All I do is ask questions. In this country, has it gotten, and that's what bugs me about 9/11. 9/11's an event you're not allowed to ask a question about.
Why do you think this topic is off limit?
Because clearly they don't want any questions on it. You know, right away, if you question what they told you about 9/11, they throw onto you you're unpatriotic. Well, I don't fear that. I dare someone to question my family's patriotism to this country.
Your article on September 11th appeared on the front page of the news website, the Huffington Post, only to promptly be removed. What do you think that was? Why did that happen? Fear, censorship?
Yeah. I can't believe the Huffington Post today will practice censorship. They asked me to be a contributing editor, and they said, write about anything you want. So it was the second time I did something. And they removed it. Well, I got news for them. I won't ever write for them again, and I know Ms. Huffington's always asking me, oh, you got to write for my paper, you got to write for it. Well, I got news for her. She just got her last article. I won't do a thing with the Huffington Post because I don't like it when people censor what I have to say.
Was this the first time you were faced with this kind of censorship, and have you actually gotten some kind of explanation as to why your article was removed?
They said that they don't do conspiracies. It was that simple. We don't do conspiracies, basically.
They had no idea you would be writing about 9/11?
I don't know. I don't know about that. They just told me to write about, we'd want you to write for the Huffington Post about any topics you want. So have I been censored before? I can't think of it off the top of my head. Usually they'll simply ignore you. Like Fox News, the three big boys at night, Hannity, O'Reilly, and Beck. I now refer to them as the Three Stooges, because I couldn't, with this book, I wasn't invited on to any of their shows.
You've been on their shows quite a few times before.
Well, I've only been on Hannity's. O'Reilly will never have me on because he can't bully me, and he knows it.
Would you dare O'Reilly to interview you?
Oh, absolutely. I would dare Bill O'Reilly to interview me. In fact, I would say, Bill, show the world you have some courage and talk to someone who won't kowtow to you.
Let me go back to 9/11. I want to ask you why you think it is that when a person tends to question the events of September 11th in the United States, they're often attacked and called a conspiracy theorist, a domestic terrorist, and so on.
Well, because it obviously means that the power structure doesn't want any questions.
What about Barack Obama? He promised transparency, accountability. We have thousands of people 10 years after September 11th wanting a new investigation. Do you think that investigation will ever take place?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
Because they're not going to let it. Because it shows me a bit of guilt. If it's what they told us happened, why wouldn't they welcome another investigation? That would put all of us to bed, wouldn't it? It would shut us all up, wouldn't it? If they agreed to do a real investigation and what they told us was real, well, then that would destroy all of us and we could all then go about our business and never deal with it again.
You do believe that 9/11 was an inside job?
I believe that they either took part in it or they certainly knew it was going to happen and allowed it to. And to me, both are as bad as each other.
Who is they, Bush and Cheney?
Yeah, the administration.
What would you say to George Bush now if you ran into him on the street?
What would I say to him? I would tell George Bush, Mr. Bush, how did you get an honorable discharge from the military, considering that your military service, if I would have behaved in that manner, there was no way that I would have got an honorable discharge. I would have got at best a general discharge, and you have now cheapened my discharge because of your behavior in the National Guard. That's what I'd say to him. I wouldn't even bring up 9/11. I'd get him with that.
Now let me ask you about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to know how you see the way Barack Obama has been handling these wars, and can you grade him for us?
When he campaigned, he promised that he would withdraw us from these wars, and the opposite's happening.
Are you saying he shouldn't have done it? He shouldn't have sent more troops to Afghanistan?
I don't believe he should have. What have we actually accomplished? I don't know.
What about grading Obama? Has he been doing a good job?
A C. A C. He started off with, there was so much hope for change, and then he named it as his administration, and it was nothing but the old Democratic Guard again. They're not change. If he would have got new people in there and got people that haven't been there 25, 30 years, that would have been change. The reality was, we'll fool them again. We'll tell them there's going to be change. They'll all vote for change, but it'll still be the old status quo when we get down to it.
Now, in numerous interviews, you've said that the U.S. government is always looking for an enemy. Who is the enemy now?
Well, there's two enemies. The enemy, of course, is terrorism, which I think there is terrorists without a doubt, but I think that they blow it up much bigger than it is. Here's the question I'd like to ask back to you, and it ties. Why do we have to spend literally almost half of our entire federal budget on defense? Who is it that is going to get us that we need to spend that kind of money to defend ourselves? And if we do have to spend that kind of money to defend ourselves, what have we done to make people want to attack us so bad that we have to defend ourselves?
So what causes these huge spendings? Is it fear?
No, I think it's aggression. I think it's us going out. I believe that our military now is the strong arm of corporate America. That when corporate America can't go out and do it in the business world, well, then we'll send the military to get the job done in the military world.
Let's go back to your book for a little bit.
Sure.
One of the issues you raise is the question of whether or not the bailout of corporations in the U.S. was the biggest conspiracy of all. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, it just seemed to me that they were creating a monopoly. They let Lehman Brothers fall under the truck and they saved Goldman Sachs. Well, government shouldn't pick winners or losers. Government should be fair to everyone.
You think anyone is going to be bailing out the common American, not the corporations?
I did. When I was governor of Minnesota, we had 3 budget surpluses, and I gave the money back to the people in the form of a check. Everybody in Minnesota got checks. They used to call them Jesse checks when I was governor. I had one old woman name her lawnmower after me. She needed a lawnmower. She used that money to get it, and she now calls her lawnmower Jesse.
But on a federal level, where do you think the U.S. economy is headed right now? Where is the government taking?
It's headed horrible. What I'd like to know is this. Apparently Greece came over here and wanted us to give them foreign aid or something. How can we give anyone foreign aid when we're so far in debt? It's nothing but the United States government buying influence. It's bribery money. It's done to get people to do what we want them to do. We buy them off. That's the true American way, according to them. Buy them off.
I want to ask you about the New World Order, the talk of this global elite stretching out their hands across the world. True or false?
I'm starting to think true. They're going to use global warming to achieve it. What they're doing with global warming, and here's what I don't like. We now pay local taxes, we pay state taxes, we pay federal taxes, and if this goes through, we'll be paying a world tax. Well, the minute this world group of global warming starts making money, well, then they're going to expand. With money, government grows. This is something that may be real, but the guys that are trying to fix it aren't trying to fix it. They're simply trying to become wealthy off it.
Are you considering running for presidency in 2 years?
No.
So what's next on your political agenda?
Political? Nothing.
Nothing. You're done with politics?
For right now, I mean, I never say never, but right now, I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to become the most prolific surfer I can.
Good for you. Good luck with that. Mr. Jesse Ventura, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you want to know, when I
us.
live in Mexico, I'll give you one last one. People often ask me, what do you do down in Mexico? And I'll tell you what I do. Every day in Mexico, I wake up with nothing to do. And when I go to bed that night, I'm half done.
Dream life. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The internet to me is the political equalizer of the age, because we who use the internet a whole lot, and the young people who like it and others, find out that they can get information that is unbiased. And evidently there's a lot of people in this country, and especially young people, who don't particularly like canned news coming from the major television networks.
With even election results becoming more and more questionable, the Constitution a thing to be manipulated, ignored, and frivolously amended, even democracy itself seems to be on the run. So where's the one place you can go and tell your version of the truth, rail against liars, fakes, and propagandists with your own unique propaganda, sign your name to it, and let the whole world know how you feel? That's right, the internet. Perhaps responsible for the most substantial shifts in culture in the last several decades. There's so much freedom and potential on the World Wide Web that one is barely able to get one's head around it. Who in their right mind would dare to regulate or charge websites to be on the internet? Who would dare to rain on a parade so fantastic that many of us would not know what to do without our high-speed connection and our lives on the internet? Actually, some very powerful forces. Telco companies want to make you pay for your site to be carried on the internet. If you can't afford to pay, guess what? That's right, your cyber history, pal. The Bush administration wants major internet and phone companies to keep track of where their customers surf, all in the name of the war on terror.
Comcast, Time Warner, others are doing it right here in Texas. Comcast is doing it in New York. The two major companies have announced 2 weeks ago in Canada that they're going to decide what sites you visit, and they're only going to allow a couple thousand sites. It's a consortium of private corporations, universities, and government, and DARPA, and other foreign governments that, quote, the internet is dead. And they say they're going to not fix the old hubs of the internet. They're going to let those degrade. They say that's their right to do that. They also want the authorization by the federal government and the FCC. That Comcast just got told Friday that they have to stop doing what they're doing, filtering out the majority of the web, and they are saying they're going to disregard the FCC. They don't have that regulatory power. So the web was built to be free and open. You pay for it with your websites you pay for. The people that are serving you pay for it with their servers and their bandwidth. You pay for it with your internet connection. We're getting more internet connectivity. We're getting more bandwidth, not less. They try to have Ted Stevens come out and say, oh, the pie's small. It's not getting bigger. We have to restrict it. Now he's indicted for all his crimes, and there's no alleging those. We need listeners to understand this is happening. This is coming down now. This has been declared. PrisonPlanet.com, Infowars.com, Infowars.net, JonesReport.com. These sites are scaring the globalists to death. They are shutting us down. They are censoring us everywhere. Appreciate our Google videos. Appreciate the YouTube videos. They're not going to be there forever, folks, if they're able to win. They're moving now. We better get the word out while we've still got some punch. You understand? You can forget Congress. You can forget the executive. It's all bought and paid for. We've got to take the country and the world back at the grassroots. They're moving to block us, and they're moving to block us because we are having an effect. Win, Comcast, and Time Warner, and a few others, but they're together about half of the cable modem market. You can pull the numbers on that in the U.S. and Canada. When they're able to do that, that sets a precedent, and then all the other majors and then minors can implement that as well. You have to boycott and protest it and speak out against it early on. Now is the time. You see, we have to recognize we're as bad or worse than China, and now they've got congressional hearings talking about shutting down our free speech. We've got all the major pundits calling for my arrest for the things I say, because we're hurting these people, because we do have power because of you, the listeners, taking action. We're walking point. We need your support. Google and YouTube, which, of course, YouTube's owned by Google, Yahoo and others, admittedly for close to 3 years, have been censoring things for the Communist Chinese government. Now they're using those same censor systems here in the United States, in Canada, in England, and there's a whole cocktail of other ways they're censoring. But again, the British government is censoring right now. They are censoring PrisonPlanet.com and our other family of websites because we're so effective. We pushed it out. Our listeners pushed it out. Got Keith Olbermann to cover last week the fact that Cheney was planning staged terror attacks and killing our own troops. This is important news. We're risking our lives. And for our safety, we need to continue to be prominent and more prominent. They're bringing in tyranny, ladies and gentlemen. The mainstream media is dying. They're panicking. The propaganda arms are losing all their credibility. So now they're engaging in communist Chinese-style Orwellian censorship.
So when I talk about freedom, and people know about the freedom of the internet, there must be a connection there. Oh, yeah, freedom of the internet. I can look and go here and pick this and talk to my friends and all this thing. So, and of course, I don't want to ever tax the internet, and I don't want to regulate the internet. And that's one thing that really gives us a chance to combat this horrendous movement to big government.
How much do you want to bet they want the internet regulated, contained, and thrown into a cell at Guantanamo Bay? For a country that talks so much about freedom being on the march, seems to me that some people want anything but. If they come for your freedom, you must not only resist, you must strike back with a vengeance that will stun them. On this front, if your anger and outrage are not at the forefront, then you're already dead.
They are moving against us now. Everybody has to stick together, or we're all going to hang separate on this. They are moving against us because we're on the verge of exposing their state-sponsored terrorism, their fake global warming hype, their global taxes, all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's happening.
Flag burning is considered free speech. Crosses as roadside memorials are not.
That's really, really brilliant.
The FCC allows the F word on broadcast television, but you can't thank God at a high school graduation. Some schools freely dispense condoms to kids, yet pencils that read "Jesus loves little children" were confiscated from a first-grade class in Virginia. The list is long, and some say evidence of an undeclared cultural war on Christianity.
If we sit back and allow our religious liberties to be targeted, to be attacked, and to be suppressed, and we don't do anything about it, eventually we're going to see a full-blown eradication of our liberties. And I don't think I'm being an alarmist to say this.
But in the battle to keep religion out of public life, the Constitution is the weapon of choice.
It was Thomas Jefferson, one of the founders of the Constitution, that said that the First Amendment was intended to erect a wall between church and state.
In fact, the Constitution doesn't say anything about the separation of church and state. What it does say is this: Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What that means is the United States, unlike, say, England at the time, would not have an official national religion, nor could government interfere with religious practice. Nowhere is public prayer or the display of Christian symbols prohibited, even mentioned. In fact, in 1789, the day after Congress passed the First Amendment, it declared a national day of prayer.
Don't mess with grandma.
But don't try that in Texas, where seniors at one center were told by the city they'd be violating the First Amendment if they said grace at mealtime. In Miami, officials tried to ban a sign reading "Jesus is the reason for the season" from the annual holiday parade.
The Constitution should never be used, as many groups try to, as a tool for censoring and silencing speech simply because it's religious. That is not civil rights.
The truth is there is no war against religion in this country, no war against Christianity, and the only thing that I object to strenuously is government endorsement and promotion of particular religious viewpoints.
In San Diego, a judge closed a Boy Scout camp on county property because the Scouts don't allow openly gay or atheist troop leaders. And in Alabama, Chief Justice Roy Moore was thrown out of office after defying a court order to remove the 10 Commandments from his Montgomery courthouse.
The Supreme Court does not mandate, nor does the Constitution command, that all religious symbolism be stripped from the public square.
And while those symbols themselves may have little value, many Christians fear that kind of intolerance will lead not to freedom of religion, but a nation free from religion. In Los Angeles, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
Schoolroom Rockies, back on the block with conspiracy theory rock. It's a media of belief, a media of belief. The whole media is controlled by a few corporations thanks to deregulation by the FCC.
You mean Disney, Fox, Westinghouse, and good old GE?
They own networks from CBS to CNBC.
They can use them to say whatever they please and put down the opinions of anyone who disagrees.
Or stuff about PCBs.
What are PCBs?
They come from electric power plants built by Westinghouse and GE.
They can give you lots of cancer that can hurt your body.
But on network TV, you rarely hear anything bad about the nuclear industry.
Like when Westinghouse was sued for fraud.
Which time?
GE made defective bolts, it was an unreported crime. Or when it was boycotted for operating nuclear bomb plants just to squeeze a dime.
That's a footnote, by the way.
A footnote protects you from folks who doubt what you say. Now maybe the voices in my head will go away.
But the big shots don't care. They're all sitting pretty thanks to corporate welfare.
What's that now?
They get billions in subsidies from the government. It's supposed to create jobs, but that's not how it's spent. They use tax and soft money to support congressmen who will vote for weapons programs again and again and let them dump toxic waste where the young ones play.
GE made the bullets that shot JFK.
You contribute to this chain every time you buy a product sponsored on this show.
That's what NBC doesn't want you to know. Till the next time.
Please stand by, please stand by. This is technical difficulty, supposedly. So if you see a please stand by, you know it's all part of G's big lie. Why did you ignore McDonald's away?
They made too many jokes about OJ.
Lord Michael's overruled.
Now don't be fooled. He